Well, hello, welcome to Assay TV. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Mike McAllister, who's the VP of Investor Relations at Sierra Metals. I last spoke to Mike down in Cape Town back in February about their company. Mike, it's slightly different situation since then. We were sat in a lovely garden under the sunshine talking then. Now I'm in Hong Kong, you're in Toronto, we're both in sort of lockdown. But despite all that, Sierra Metals has had a very interesting year, and you've recently released some very promising results. Obviously, you have there three operating mines: Yauricocha Polymetallic Mine in Peru, you have the Bolivar Copper Mine in Mexico, and Cusi Silver in Mexico. Cusi, you recently released an increase in your mineral resource estimate. Tell us a little bit about what the sort of numbers are coming out at Cusi.
So Cusi, we basically improved the mineral resource to now be in excess of 10 million tons of resources. And what we're finding there is that, we're getting a decent silver grade. It's like, about an average of 200. But what's quite exciting as well with Cusi is a new silver discovery we've had in an area that we thought was virgin territory, as well to the north east of the Santa Rosa de Lima zone. And this is an area that was thought to be barren of resources, but we were working in the area and we discovered some stockwork, which we thought was stockwork. And upon further investigation, discovered it's a series of veins heading to the northeast. And so we did some drilling and we had some fantastic results, including 17 meters over 400 grams of silver, even 5 meters of 1,100 grams silver. And so some of that made it into the inferred in the resource, and we'll also be continuing to drill on that and upgrade. And that's better grades than we're typically putting through the mill now. And so we're quite excited that we'll be able to bring that into the mine plan very quickly. But definitely, what we're excited about with this resource with Cusi is that we're going to see, not only improved grade, but also as we complete a PEA, which is expected to come out very shortly on that mine, as well as a preliminary feasibility study, which will come out probably in the second quarter of next year. We'll be having a maiden reserve on that property as well. So definitely that mine is growing up and starting to perform and do well.
Fantastic. How many meters of drilling did you do in this new zone?
We did about 1,000 meters so far, and we're working on another 1,000-meter program as we speak.
Fantastic. And I guess those higher grades are going to help with your all-in sustaining costs.
Definitely. That'll help to bring down the all-in sustaining costs, as well as we ramp up. Cusi's had higher costs in the past. We had a subsidence last year there. We had to do a bunch of extra development, which hurt us. And now this year, we were shut down during COVID during the second quarter and the first month of the third quarter. And so our costs on a 9-month average are in the 20s. But if you look at the third quarter, which we were able to operate for 60 days, we were managed to bring those all sustaining costs down to about $16. And we think we can push those down further, closer to 14. And, with silver trading up in the $22, $23 range currently, that still provides us with a nice margin.
Fantastic. And looking at Yauricocha, which is your flagship project down there in Peru, you've also done a big increase in the mineral resource tonnage there, and you're putting out an improved PEA on that as well. Tell us a little bit about the numbers you're getting there.
Sure. So for Yauricocha, we're looking to go to 5,500 tons per day from our current permitted 3,150. And that gives us an NPV of about 333 million using an 8% discount. As well as an after-tax net cash flow of 495 million. And so, we have a life of mine costs on that of about 268 million. Probably a third of those we'll see in the first few years, upfront costs. But overall, we'll see per unit costs on a copper equivalent basis of about $1.28 a pound. And, that gives us a mine life with the increased resource that we saw there of about 12 years. And in terms of the resources there, we increased our resource to 27 million almost 28 million tons of resource from 19 million. And, we continue to drill on ore bodies that are open at depth, open along strike. And we have some new targets that we're working on as well. So not only do we continue to replace what we're mining out, we continue to increase our resource tonnage as well. And, we're seeing grades for there in the PEA. For silver, about 34 grams, copper about 1.28%, about a half a gram of gold, and then zinc about 1.7%, and lead about half a cent as well.
And how many meters have you drilled on that this year?
I believe it's been about 3,000 meters. You got me on that one. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it's about 3,000 meters. But definitely we're planning a lot more. And one of the reasons we didn't drill as much this year is because we were, because of COVID, we had to stop the drills, and we were only able to start those back up again in the late third quarter. So we won't finish as much of the drilling as we wanted to in 2021, but the drills are turning now, and we're going full on for next year. And so we'll be releasing our guidance for the year probably around the 15th of January, and that will include the capex for drilling and exploration next year, the number of meters, and all that information.
And you've recently also, as part of these announcements, you released your Q3 results. When I spoke to your CEO, Luis Marchese, I think it was about 3 months ago when your Q2 results had come out. At the time, your Q2 results, I mean, you were, despite all the challenges of COVID, you had managed to sort of maintain your EBITDA. These Q3 results are a lot more promising, yeah?
Very promising. As I mentioned, we did have shutdowns in the second quarter at Cusi was completely in care and maintenance because of its proximity to an urban center. Yauricocha and Bolivar, we had to reduce to essential crews. And so we were able to process stockpiles and do minimal work, but definitely we saw a drawback. But in the third quarter, we had a terrific quarter. We had record production, quarterly production. We had revenue of 73 million, adjusted EBITDA of 37 million, and free cash flow of 24 million. And so that built our cash position up to $64 million. And we expect the fourth quarter to be somewhat in that range as well. And so that'll bring us close to our guidance of between 100 and $105 million of EBITDA for this year.
Fantastic. And just to touch on Bolivar, I mean, I think about a month ago, you released an update of the PEA for Bolivar, where you were talking about doubling your projected output there.
Exactly. Bolivar is really come into its own here. From being a small operation, it's coming into a mid-tier, and it's going to continue to grow. We have 41 million tons of resources there, a very large resource, and we believe there's more where we're drilling. And so we were able to forecast doubling the output to 10,000 tons per day. And that gives us an NPV of 283 million and an after-tax cash flow of 521 million with a 14-year mine life. And that's assuming copper at a $3.05 per pound. And if you've been watching the copper price lately, it certainly has been outperforming that. So we're quite excited between the two projects. It's an NPV currently of about 650 million or so. And so we're very excited. And the cash flow is over $1 billion. So, and that we haven't even put out the Cusi PEA yet. That should be next week. But definitely some exciting times for the company. We're seeing significant growth at all three mines, and it definitely supports the stock price improvement that we've been seeing.
I mean, it's certainly interesting that you touched on the copper price just now, but when we met back in February, obviously, the world was going into COVID. We were still in a big sort of trade war situation. The copper price had taken a bit of a dip, but it's certainly, come on since then, and recently sort of, touching 7-year highs. You must be, very encouraged by that.
We're very encouraged by that, considering copper, between the output we see from Bolivar and the output we see at Yauricocha, that's averaging now probably about 40% of our revenue mix. And so we have about 40% coming from copper alone, and then we have another 30% coming from precious, being silver and gold, and then another 30% coming from zinc and lead. And even zinc, which we typically weren't as bullish on. We thought the price would come down, has been holding in at that $1.20 to $1.25 per pound range, and so it's definitely benefited us in terms of revenue.
Absolutely. You've mentioned COVID a few times, and I know when I talked to Lewis a few months ago, COVID was weighing heavily on your minds. But how have you been coping with that, and what have you been putting in place to make sure your mines can keep operating?
Sure. So our employees typically work now. It used to be 2 on, 1 off, and now we've moved it to a 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And so when the employees are coming back from their 2-week break, we're doing something called the double fencing method. So we test the employees, they go into quarantine, and then we test them again before they're allowed to join the active workforce. And so we've been very good at mitigating any shutdowns of the mines. And you may have read in the news, there's been other companies where they have COVID outbreaks and they have shut mines. We've mitigated that completely. And so, the only downside, I guess, a bit to that is as we're testing, especially in Mexico right now, we're seeing some higher case counts. And so we're having to use some contractor temporary employees and fill in for the regular employees. But by testing them and making sure that there's no cases coming into the mine, we're protecting not only the mine and making sure the company's running well, but we're also protecting the communities in which we operate. And so we're able to send the employees back for healthcare or to recover before they come back to work again. And so it's just benefiting the company in the sense that we're continuing to progress and to operate despite the pandemic going on.
If workers test positive on that first test, you then have healthcare facilities to sort of look after them until they're better again, and then they can come back to work?
Essentially. So depending on the severity of the case, we test them before they get on the bus to come to the mine site. They're tested there, and then if they're positive there, they're referred back to the local healthcare. And if they come to the mine and do their quarantine in the quarters and then are coming out of their quarters to work and they test positive, then we typically send them. We don't keep them at the mine. We transport them back to the town center, to the healthcare centers there. And then we do any contact tracing of anybody who's become positive to make sure that they're not. And typically they go for a little bit longer of a quarantine before they would join. But it's cost a little bit more, in all honesty. But at the same time, it's much cheaper to have this program in place than to have a mine shut down.
Absolutely, and the health and safety of your workers is paramount.
Correct.
So looking forward into 2021, what do you think are going to be the sort of highlights for investors looking at your company?
You know what? I think the one highlight is that Yauricocha, we've been waiting for a permit from the government to move from 3150 up to 3600, and that includes a 5% overallotment. So we'd be able to go to 3780. So the one would be a 20% increase at Yauricocha. Additionally, we're looking at running the mines at full capacity, whereas this year was a ramp up for Bolivar and Cusi. Next year, they'll be running at full capacity. So definitely we're going to see strong cash flow, strong EBITDA. And I think we'll also start to see some good results come back from the preliminary feasibility studies, which are the next progressive step in the PAs. And then also we're going to continue to drill at the new zone at Cusi, the new discovery, as well as on several new targets at Bolivar and Yauricocha. And so I think you're going to see some further updates to the exploration and opportunities that we're seeing there. So the company is running currently on all cylinders, and I think it's just going to be great for shareholders.
Oh, fantastic! It's been a very interesting year so far for you. Very successful in the last quarter, certainly, and we look forward to seeing how things develop into 2021. But thank you very much for joining me today, Mike.
Thank you, Leo. I appreciate it.
Thanks.